future Mr. Francy popping in here just to say that you're going to get 2 reviews, but they were done on different days. I'm sure you'll be able to tell it as you do go along. So we'll go over to Past Mr. Francy first, and then we'll come back and review the second book. Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is a YA LGBTIQ+ book. I loved it so much that I gave it 5 stars. We follow Alex, who is the son of the first female president of the United States. He has a crush on a prince of England who is due to take the throne at some later stage. However, with there being a lot of controversy and potential drama and chaos that could ensue if they do end up getting together into a relationship, can they overcome these obstacles to end up together, and with everyone being okay with it? Only time will tell. It is singular perspective. Now hold up. Because if you know me, you know your boy, Mr. Francy, loves singular perspectives or omniscient narration. For those of you who don't know, omniscient narration is where we have a narrator who can kind of spy on all the characters at any given time from the perspective of the narrator rather than themselves. This book is a singular perspective, which means we follow the internal thoughts and feelings of Alex, which is the son of the first female president. I really felt that this book would have benefited a lot more from it being a dual perspective. Now I know, hold up, your man, Mr. Francy, is all about singular perspective, so why do I think that this book should have been a dual perspective? Alex is the son of the first female president. This is an amazing perspective to follow, don't get me wrong, but Henry is living in the royal palace and he is one of the descendants of the queen. He is going to become king one day, so it'd be great to follow his perspective as well. This book is written in present tense. I feel that past tense works best in books, and the reason that I feel this, it is personal opinion, is twofold. One, I feel like as a reader reading this, yes, we get the advantage of reading it as though it's playing out right before our eyes, but in reality, the author's already written the book, so it doesn't make sense to me that it's present tense. It's already been written, so it should be written as a past tense. But also for me, one little thing that really bugs me, it just really gets in there and really bugs me, is with present tense, it can oftentimes come across as a plan for a future script. There is swearing in this book, and it is a YA. Now, I've done some research recently because this is something that also gets a little bit with me, because I personally am not a fan of swearing in YA, and I honestly don't even think it's permissible for swearing to be a middle grade, but I'm just not a fan for it being in YA. In adult books, I understand. Adult books are targeted to a much more mature audience, 18+, so it makes sense, go for the gusto, absolutely, that's fine. But with YAs, you're targeting these books to children as young as 13 years of age, and personally, because everyone's raised differently, just personally for me, I don't think it's a really good idea to have 13-year-olds reading swear words and encouraging them. That's just my opinion. When I say swearing, I'm referring to the worst swear word there is, the F word, and it appears, I would guess, about 10 times in the books. It is an emotional read. I've read books in the past that I've thought were great books, but they just didn't provoke any emotion out of me. This one definitely did for many different reasons. I won't say that it took me around the twist and back again like some other books have, but I will say that it provoked emotion out of me in the way of joy, in the way of confusion, and in the way of anger. And that to me is something I appreciate, because if a book can provoke emotion in me, the author has done a really good job. So do be prepared to go into this book with some emotions to come out when you're reading it, but also keep in mind that I am part of the LGBTIQ+ community. I am a gay man, so going into this book, there are some LGBTIQ+ issues which we'll touch upon in just a moment, and so they affected me. This book contains the letter writing trope done well. Thank you! Thank you, Casey McQuiston! It took long enough for this to happen. So last year I read a book called This Is How You Lose the Time War, and I was not a fan of this book. The reason why, and how it relates to this book, Red, White and Royal Blue, is that with that book we are following two women who are writing letters to each other, and the trope is plot, letters, plot, letters, plot, letters. So we have the plot that leads up to the first couple letters, then we get some letters, then we have plot that comes about because of those letters, after the letters, and so on and so forth. It was not done well. It is done well in this book. In Red, White and Royal Blue, it is electronic letters, so it is emails, but it's still the same trope to me. Letters, plot, plot, letters, plot, letters, plot, letters, but just in this case, it's plot, email, plot, email, plot, email. The emails are amazing. The plots that come before the emails drive the emails, and then the emails drive the plot forward as well. So it all just worked really well. LGBTIQ plus polarities done really well. What do I mean by this? In a spoiler-free way, I am referring to issues that can come up because of the LGBTIQ plus community and because of the way that they are seen and things of that nature. But what this book does well that other books that I've read don't tend to do well, so major plus for Casey McQuiston, is that those that are on the not so supportive side of the LGBTIQ plus issues actually have good reasons. So what I mean is we're not just dealing with the bully who is bullying for the sake of bullying. We are dealing with real people who just have a stance and they have reasons behind why they have that stance, and if you are to look at those reasons neutrally and logically speaking, it makes sense why they stand where they stand. And coming from a gay guy saying this, that says a lot. I loved this book. It was absolutely worth the hype. 5 stars, and I highly recommend Roomies by Christina Lauren. And you know what? I didn't hate it. Oh my god, can you believe that I did not hate this book? I went into this book thinking I was absolutely going to detest it. I read Inner Holidays last month. I gave it 2 stars. I really just was not a fan of Christina Lauren. This one is so much better. I gave this book 4 stars. We are following a woman by the name of Holland who is obsessed with a busker who plays an instrument at a railway station, and she's so obsessed that she basically will catch trains at a time that she knows he's going to be there so that she can purposefully pass him. She coincidentally has an uncle who works in theatre, and she ends up telling him about this guy because they've had someone who's pulled out of their live orchestra that they have at the theatre, and she thinks he'll be perfect for the role. He ends up getting the role, but unfortunately he can't be paid because he doesn't have citizenship in the US. He was born over in Ireland. So the two of them end up getting married so that he can basically kind of like secure a green card, I guess, so that he can get paid, but they have to try and pull off this fake marriage, which is not going to be easy. So this was a rough start, you guys, but the good news for me, and incidentally for Christina Lauren, is that I had read Inner Holidays and that was completely rough for me. So the rough start that I experienced in this book, I was just like, yep, this is what we expected. It's Christina Lauren. It's fine. We'll just get through it. And I'm so glad that I said, we'll just get through it. And a big part of the reason why I did get through that slog of a beginning that was so rough for me is because of the goal that I have set to read 6 straight romance books by the end of the year. If I did not have that goal, this book would have been so quickly DNF'd. But I'm so glad I got through that rough start because it got better after that. Also, our protagonist is incredibly forgetful. Not only that, but our protagonist assumes that we, the reader, are forgetful too. The guy that she ends up marrying, who is Irish, instead of saying think, he says tink. And every time he says the word tink, she has to remind us that she loves it. By the 20th time, I was thinking, why are we still needing to be reminded that this is the case? Let's talk about how she is forgetful as a protagonist. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Holland is not set up to be forgetful as a character in any way, shape, or form. She doesn't have any condition that would have her forget anything, and we don't have any setup at the beginning of the book that suggests to us that she ever forgets anything. And she ends up having some really important conversations that give her some really important nuggets. And for me, the reader, I took these important nuggets to heart. But I guess Holland didn't, because when she was reminded of these things, or when these things would somehow circle back around, Holland's response would be, oh, what? As though it's new information to her, and she had to be reminded. In a way, it's almost like indirectly, again, assuming the reader is going to forget this, because not only is Holland told, yeah, remember I said this, but it's more, yeah, remember I said this when we were doing this, and I said this, and like, it's so intricately detailed, the reminder. Once again, like with my last book that I reviewed, I want to talk about this book being another romance that is a singular perspective. I have the same reasons as I had with my last book. I am not a full-on romance reader. One of the reasons why I have a goal to read 6 straight romance books in 2021 is because in 2020, when I started my booktube channel, I only read 1. So I had the goal to force myself to read more romance so I could be more experienced with this genre. Maybe for romance, it is the dumb thing that we only follow one of the perspectives, and so far with Christina Lauren, the only perspective we've followed is the female. It was great to get Holland's perspective, don't get me wrong, but why didn't we get Calvin's perspective, who is the male love interest of the story? To me, I just feel like it would have made a whole lot more sense. Again, like I said in my last review, your man, Mr. Francy, is a singular perspective, omniscient narrator, reader. But to me, I feel that romance books will be able to take a step further if they were dual perspective. But on the upside, there are some things that Christina Lauren did really well. The trying to get married to stay in the country trope, it was done incredibly well. Christina Lauren really put a magnifying glass onto this issue and give us a little bit of an insight as to how something might play out if anyone were to consider having a fake marriage in order to allow someone to stay in the country. LGBTIQ plus representation, because I don't remember if I mentioned this or not with Inner Holidays, but something that Inner Holidays and Roomies both have in common is that they do have LGBTIQ plus representation. In this one, it is the protagonist's uncle. He has a husband or a partner. I don't know if they're actually married. But anyway, they are featured off and on as supporting characters throughout the book, and I really, really appreciate that. The last thing I feel like I'm gonna read when I'm picking up a straight romance book is LGBTIQ plus romances, or just anything, any kind of LGBTIQ plus representation. But it's there, and I really appreciated that. Redemption. Okay, so with Inner Holidays, my biggest complaint with that book was that being a romance, I knew that whether I liked it or not was all going to hinge around how much I liked the romance. It just didn't work for me. It felt rushed, it felt forced, it didn't work for me. Redemption for Christina Lauren with Roomies, because in this book, we get a realistic look at what a relationship might be like. It is not all fluffy love, sunshine, roses, looking at things through rosy-colored glasses view of a relationship at all. There are conflicts that come up. There are big issues that do occur. And I really appreciated that that layered dynamic was in this book as well. I do actually recommend this book. If you, like me, are not a seasoned romance reader, I would recommend starting with this one. It is a great entry point. These are the books that I did reviews on in this video. Red, White and Royal Blue, a YA LGBTIQ+ book that I gave 5 stars to, and Roomies by Christina Lauren, an adult romance book that I gave 4 stars to. But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it, so thank you so much for watching. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Happy reading!